All right, so let's go, brother.
Sweet.
You're listening to the Podcast Engineering Show, session number 13, and actually today's Friday the 13th, and it's a full moon. So you know the band plays better during full moons. Oh! My in-house band. Welcome, everyone, to the show. I'm Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for Forbes, Dun & Bradstreet, and a lot of business authors as well. And this show is the show where we bring you podcast production techniques every week. We talk with experts who are producing podcasts, and the knowledge you learn on this show will help you produce your podcast better, or even enter or start a business or start a career as a podcast producer engineer. I have a background in audio engineering in the music business back in the 90s and the 2000s. And when I entered podcasting about 4 years ago, I noticed there was a huge lack of audio skills through no one's fault, but it's just that, podcasters typically aren't trained as audio engineers. So that's where this show can help. I really bring my audio engineering background into the world of podcasting, and my buddy and maintenance man in the building, Barry, is here with me. And it's not Barry White. It's Barry, the maintenance guy. You ready to go, Barry?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. He's ready. Barry, what are we going to need for this episode to make it a really good episode? I mean, Joel Boggess is going to be on the show. He's actually here now. But what are we going to need, Barry?
You're going to need a couple of horses or a couple of mules.
Yeah, typical things that podcasters need. So real quick, this show is brought to you by two companies that I'm involved with. One is the Podcast Engineering School. It's a school that I'm starting to teach individuals to have a career as a podcast producer engineer, or start your business as a podcast producer engineer. So the website is podcastengineeringschool.com. Hopefully in the fall of this year, 2016, we'll have our first classes or courses. I'm figuring it out right now. And of course, this show is also brought to you by Fractal Recording. That's my podcast production company, providing the highest quality production of podcasts to authors and podcast networks and companies. You can find a lot more info at fractalrecording.com. And that's kind of cool too, because I have my audio engineering background and I'm working with clients, producing shows for them. So the Podcast Engineering School is just basically going to be me and my team of experts teaching individuals how to do that, how to have a career, how to sharpen their audio skills. So obviously you can listen to this show anywhere you hear a podcast, literally anywhere. Come up with a new way to hear podcasts and you'll find this show there. So our guest today is Joel Boggess. I met him at PodFest in Tampa earlier this year. I think that was February, right, Joel? Was it February?
Yeah. Hey, Chris, how you doing? February was PodFest, and you don't have to twist my arm too hard to get me to go to Florida. And,
right. Well, you live in Texas, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you get decent weather there, although sometimes you have hailstorms there, right?
Yeah, gosh, we had hailstorms the last couple of weeks, and in fact, I'm getting some home improvement done, unrelated, on my house, and contractor came out here, and he was talking about, gosh, we're just been so busy because so many of the homes in the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth, have been, the skylights have just been shattered by this softball-sized hail. But it's been crazy, but you know what? We have been protected. Our house has not received any of the bad stuff.
There you go.
We're thankful for.
Knock on wood. So you're a podcast and book launch expert. You're all about the launches. I know we talked about in Tampa as well. We're not going to talk about that on today's episode. So if you're listening and you want to know more from Joel about how to launch like the whole campaign to launch a podcast or a book, go find Joel. You're also the host of a podcast called ReLaunch, right?
Oh, yeah. We've been doing ReLaunch. Gosh, we're going on 2 years now, and we have just been having a blast with it. We are at about 1.3 million downloads right now, and right at the end of last year, 2015, Huffington Post actually put us in an article and named us one of the top 5 inspirational podcasts, and this is crazy. A week after that happened, Inc. magazine put us in an article naming us as one of the top 20 business podcasts of 2015. So that was like, whoa, okay, I'll I'll take all that.
Yeah, put it in your bio for sure.
And we're just having a lot of fun with the show. Like you, Chris, I come from a long history of radio. It's been 25 years since I got my first gig in terrestrial radio. And we can talk about that or not, but it's just been a blast to see how broadcasting and now podcasting has just come of age. And you with Fractal are doing a fantastic job keeping up with everything that the new wave of podcasters need to know.
Yeah, and this show, and both of us are actually speaking at Podcast Movement in July as well. So you have a background in radio. I have a background in music, and it's funny how those two backgrounds are very different, actually. It's interesting how different they are. I think radio is definitely closer to podcasting or broadcasting, but however, because of all the the engineering that podcasters have to do themselves, me having a music engineering background is very helpful too, because knowing how to actually work with the sound itself. I know in a lot of radio stations, everything's all set up. The mics are there, the EQs are there, the compressors, the limiters at the level, everything is all set. You just got to go in front of the mic and talk. And of course, there's an engineer there as well, but the talent and the host don't really get into the sound. So that's an interesting difference there. So let's get right into it. We start with the speed round, as everyone knows. And the speed round started out with 3 questions. Now we're down to 2 questions because I combined 2 of them. So let me know, Joel, tell us quickly, or briefly, I should say, not quickly. What shows do you produce and engineer yourself? Is it just ReLaunch that you do all the recording and engineering yourself?
Sure. We've been incredibly blessed. We were actually the podcast launch coach, and also the creative team behind Michael Port's podcast, Steal the Show. Nice. And we still have our hands in that show. And gosh, it's been out for months now and has just done incredibly well. And then we also have our hands in Bob Berg's The Go-Giver podcast. And that show has done phenomenal as well. And we're just thrilled to be involved. Bob is one of the best guys that you could ever know, and he's become a mentor and a close friend to me. So we're working still with those 2. And when Heil Microphone decided to do a podcast, they came and they hired us, and we were able to get them situated. And even though they've been in the sound business, your business, for 50 years, they needed a podcast coach, right? Because they didn't know the first thing about it. But they came to me, and we were able to help them rock it with their podcast and do some fun things with it.
Right. Yeah. So you're launching these shows. That's awesome that you're working with these guys. Michael Port and Bob Berg have been on some of my clients' shows recently as well. I've spoken to both them a couple times. But for you yourself personally, actually literally recording and engineering and editing shows, you do all that for the ReLaunch show, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We do have an assistant, a virtual assistant, and it's really my wife and I. We're doing the post-production. We're doing a little bit of editing. We're doing the mixing, and then we're also uploading to Libsyn, which is the choice that we use for our audio host, and recommend that to all my clients. But yeah, it's pretty much soup to nuts there with a little bit of help from our assistant. But I'm so intimately involved, and your listeners will be able to appreciate that in the actual content that we take a lot of care.
Right. Yeah, the content is good. I mean, and that's obviously the name of the game. However, this show is more about the actual engineering of it. So the second question on the speed round is, tell us, when you're getting ready to do an episode, you're getting ready to record an episode of ReLaunch, and you have all your content done, you're all prepared. Mm-hmm. From a technical standpoint, tell me about it. Where do you sit? Describe your studio and take us through the workflow. Again, this is the overview. We're going to get into each step separately, but just give us the quick overview of the production workflow.
Sure. Generally speaking, quick Skype connection, computer to computer. I'm always hardwired. I'm using an Ethernet cable. Hopefully my guest does that. That's not always the case, but that's also not a requirement. Do the best we can on that. Sometimes I'll have to call out on Skype if they're not available.
Right.
Generally a landline. But it seems like less and less people are having those available. So, you know what? I do sell too, but I do give them that warning that to help you sound your best, we probably want to do a Skype. So I lean to that, but that's not always, not everyone has that capability, and especially I talk to actors and athletes, and they're traveling a lot. Speakers, they're between hotel rooms or between airports. So you got to make some accommodations for that. And then, but Skype connection, I've got 2 mounted microphones. I use HAL microphones on my studio. I've got a mixer, talking into a mixer. It's going through a gate, and everything is recorded digitally on an external drive.
Okay, an external computer?
No, an external. No, I'm using a Roland Edirol.
Oh, okay, a digital recorder. Cool.
External from my computer. Correct.
Okay. So you have a little studio. The studio's in your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It is.
And so let's step through this then. This is what we do on the show. So let's start with you got a little studio there. Is it like a dedicated studio room, or is it like someone's bedroom as well?
Yes, no, it's a dedicated studio room. We just moved into a house a few months ago, and the studio was the first room that was actually furnished. And so it's a dedicated studio room. We've got custom designed equipment and a custom broadcast station. I didn't start out that way, far from it, but that's kind of what I've graduated into.
What do you mean station?
Over time, we have a broadcast desk, one designed specifically for broadcasting. It's got risers on it, so I can mount my boom arms into the furniture.
Right.
And I've got shelves available. Like earlier, you asked me to turn down my gain a little bit,
right? And
so I had to walk around my studio because the mixer's hidden in a shelf outside of view.
Got it.
And which is great because it doesn't get accidentally bumped or,
right,
knocked over.
So are you shooting video in there? Is that why you have everything so nice and neat and tidy and looking good?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I wanted that. We don't do as much video currently as I had envisioned, but slowly but surely, we're getting into that. Just so that is available as well. We can have that on our YouTube channel and various other places.
Okay.
But generally speaking, the video pretty much increases every week.
Okay. So you have 2 Heil microphones. Which mic is it? Are they?
PR40.
PR40. Okay. I really want to try the PR40. I want to try a bunch of microphones, but I can't go out and buy all these microphones.
Sure.
I got to get to know these manufacturers. Anyway, they need to sponsor the show too. Anyway, so Heil PR40s, and you obviously have the pop filters, and they're on the boom arm, and then it goes to the mixer. What kind of mixer is it?
I've got a Mackie mixer. Don't recall the model number off the top of my head, but it's a 12 channel, and I've got both mics plugged in to there, and it's probably a little bit more than I need for this particular show, but I guess it's nice to have a little bit of extra functionality.
Totally.
As opposed to not having it and then needing it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you should I always recommend get a little bigger board than you need because, why not? It's an investment. You're going to have it for almost forever. And you know what? Why are you going to go cheap and try to buy something really tiny and then 6 months down the road or a year or who knows 5 years you might need something different. So I always recommend that. So you're going into the mixer, and then you come out of the. So wait, if someone's on Skype, I guess you have a separate computer that also goes into the mixer.
No, I'm using the same computer. It's my iMac. The iMac is tied into the Skype connection is through the iMac, and then it ties into the mixer. So I do have two computers. I have a laptop and then also the desktop, but I just use my desktop with everything. So there's less screens for me to look at.
Right. Yeah, so the call comes in on Skype, it comes out of the computer, then goes into the mixing board and mixes with your two microphones, and then you come out of the mixer right into the Edirol?
No, we have a multicom a PR something. I forget the model number. And then we go into the Edirol from there.
So it's a multicom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what, a compressor gate? What does that do?
Correct. Compressor gate. It's Multicom Pro XL. Yeah, it's a compressor gate.
And okay, so you come out of the Mackie into the compressor gate, and out of the compressor gate into your digital recorder.
Correct. You know what? I think I got that backwards. I think it's the other way around. It's the Mackie into the digital recorder.
Oh, okay.
And we used to use. I used to have a phone hookup too, so I could take landline phone calls.
Right.
And that's actually kind of funny. In our old house, I didn't even realize this, but it was a real bad storm, and my equipment got struck by lightning.
Oh.
Yeah, and the phone unit that I received phone calls on was fried, and I didn't know it. And oh my gosh! So we got to recording day, and I had 3 or 4 guests lined up to record, and I look like such an amateur because I got somebody on, and I plug them through, and I'm like, hello, can you hear me? And like
nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, I lost, or not lost, but I missed so many interviews. Gosh, probably like 5 or 6 till we started figuring out what's going on here.
Oh. It
can't just be a bad connection. But sure enough, one of our pieces was fried, and we had to have it replaced, which was very, very costly. Lesson there is use a power cord. Use a power strip, and when the storm's rolling in, power that thing down. Turn the power switch off. Unplug it if you need to.
Right.
That's what we do. Pay will get up in the middle of the night if there's thunder in the
background. That's your wife?
Yeah, that's my wife.
Pay, yeah.
Sorry. And she'll come into the studio, and she'll unplug it, just because we've been on the bad end of that,
right?
And it's not fun.
So I just looked up the Multicom Pro XL. It's actually the Behringer MDX 4600.
Okay.
Which is a 4-channel compressor limiter with the gate, right? That's the one that Cliff Ravenscraft suggests, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
So you've got that down better than I do. So.
Yeah. So you're using that on the insert of your mixer, then, right?
I'm sure you're right.
Yeah. But you must be. Yep. So you're on the couple channels. Well, all the channels probably. Well, this is a 4-channel unit here, Behringer MDX 4600. It's a $150 unit, so it's definitely not a high-end unit, but apparently it does the job because a lot of people have it, and Cliff recommends it. But it's good to use on the insert of your Mackie. So when you come out of when you plug your microphone into the Mackie, and then each mic signal goes out to the Behringer and gets compressed or gated or whatever you do with it, and then it comes back into the Mackie. Then it goes through, gets mixed with all the other mics and your computer or your Skype call, and then goes out to the Edirol and gets recorded.
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Got it.
Yeah, Cliff was our first podcast client, a podcast coach, and I pretty much followed his recommendations.
Right.
And plan. I had been podcasting long before I met him, but I was kind of just bumping and starting and stopping kind of thing, because I really didn't have what I needed to know
Right.
I didn't have that knowledge. I knew how to do the radio and the promotion thing, but I didn't know enough of nuts and bolts.
Got it. All right. So you get it recorded onto your Edirol digital recorder. Mm-hmm. And what resolution do you record at, by the way?
You know what? I don't recall that off the top of my head.
It's a wave file, though. Not obviously, it's uncompressed wave file.
Yes, and then we take that and then we dump that into our Audition, which is where we do all of our editing. Adobe Audition. Mm-hmm.
Adobe Audition, right? Okay, so you take it off the Edirol, put it into Audition, and then you edit it. How much? Talk to me about the editing process.
Yeah, editing time. Gosh, mere minutes. Chris, we've been doing this for a long time, and we try not to edit. I mean, we could get in there and split hairs and spend hours editing and taking out ahs and ums and long pauses, ponders, and all that. And obviously, we're going to edit. If calls are dropped on Skype, or if there's a siren in the background or something like that. Obviously, we're going to take that out. But we don't do a lot of during show editing. We'll snip off the front where we have nice little chat and 3, 2, 1, and then we'll slice off the ending where we have okay, we'll see you later and all that kind of stuff, and that's basically it, really. But I also have recorded already, of course, our intro music, which we can just bring that into our workflow. And I also have, recorded outros and calls to action. Okay,
so these are pre-recorded intro and outro.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I can bring those in. Yeah, so I don't have to record them again.
Right.
And then we have that, so we can put in whatever we need to, and then I will record a little post-production as well.
Okay. What do you mean? What do you do?
Well, sure. Thanks for asking. Well, because for each guest, I'll do the intro, the formal intro.
Got it.
In post.
Okay.
And then I'll also talk about a little bit what we talked about, kind of as a tease kind of thing.
Got it.
But of course, I don't know what we're going to talk about until we've talked. So that's a post.
Yeah, that's a workflow choice that every podcast has to make. Is like, some shows do it as if it's live, and they kind of know the 2 or 3 topics they're going to talk about with the guest in advance, and it's easy enough to say, hey, welcome to our show. Our guest today we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, and our guest is Joe Smith. Hey, Joe. And so that's one workflow where you do it live, and obviously from a production standpoint, that's much easier and quicker because
correct,
you just bang it out and it's all in one. It's all in order. It's done. The other philosophy is, I want to hear the interview. I want to take notes. I want to write down the X, Y, and Z, and maybe even the P, D, and Q, whatever. And then I want to craft an intro. And I have clients that do it both ways. I also have clients who they record a show. They're like, "That's it, it's done, post it." And other clients, they want me to send them the audio, and they want to listen to it and make edits and cut this, cut that.
Do you have a personal preference, Chris? I'd love to hear what your personal thought.
Well, like I said, from a production standpoint, it's easier to do it as if it's live.
Right.
However, some of my clients actually do create a pretty interesting intro. It's not just an extended bio, reading the guest's bio. It's actually a little more content where they're talking about something or commenting on a topic or setting up the interview in a certain way. So if you're going to do something creative with it, then definitely you have to do it afterwards. And that makes sense if you're going to be creative. But I think if you're just going to literally introduce the guest, I think you should just be prepared, have your bullet points of your introduction, and just bang it out right there.
I think you're right. Every once in a while, I'll have a guest on that is known for one thing. Like for instance, she I had Shannon Miller on the show. She's a Olympic gold medalist. I don't remember how many gold medals she won, but 5, 6, 7, some astronomical number. And so it was pretty obvious to me what we were going to talk about a little bit. So it was a little bit easier for me to kind of craft the intro before we had the conversation.
Totally.
But so I do that from time to time. I mean, if I know what I'm definitely going to ask questions regarding,
right,
then that helps.
Yeah. So exactly. There's no wrong way. Just you do whatever you want to do. That's the greatest thing about podcasting. There's no rules.
Right.
There's no standards. Literally, there are none. Well, there's some loudness standards which are coming into play now, but besides that, I mean, content-wise, there's nothing. You could make an hour long where you just use curse words only. If you wanted to. I mean, that's obviously stupid. So let's get back into it. When you bring it into Adobe Audition, which is a program that I still haven't used, although I've used a lot of
What do you use? What do you use?
I use Reaper because I'm on PC, and Reaper is a really lightweight multi-track digital recorder. And yeah, it doesn't take up a lot of CPU at all, which is what I like about it. It's it's kind of like Pro Tools, but it's obviously not as good, but it's fine for podcasting. It's great. It's just totally fine. And I also do my stereo editing after I mix it down in Reaper. I do my stereo editing in SoundForge Pro, which I really like. Yeah. So
SoundForge Pro. I'll have to take a look at that at some point.
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know, maybe like $300, but it has some decent plugins. It's just a stereo editor, but it has a bunch of cool functions. And I don't know, the way it looks and feels, I've been using it since the late 90s, I think.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, on and off. I haven't been in audio constantly since the late 90s. But so when you get it into Adobe Audition, how do you handle when some of the voices are different volumes? Like, what if your Skype guest is the volume's low? Do you do any correction on anything like that?
Yeah, a little bit. We try to be as hands off on the editing process as possible. I think one of the things that makes podcasting cool and fun to listen to is because that is, a reality type radio, reality radio. That's what you can think of. So that's why we don't do a whole lot of editing. I mean, if somebody knocks on the door, no big deal. You make light of it. It's like, hey, somebody's here.
Right.
You peek out the window. Oh, it's the UPS guy. I wonder what that could be. And then, you just have fun with it.
Totally.
Dog barks in the background. I mean, it's different. Now, if it's like I mentioned this earlier, if it's a loud siren going down your street, that's going to be highly annoying.
Right.
So yeah, you want to use your judgment there. But we do limit the peaks and the valleys a little bit, and do a little bit of adjusting. But we have our levels set pretty well for the most part.
Got it.
In studio, so there's not much call for that. I would say the editing, gosh, Chris, probably 5 to 10 minutes.
Wow. And so you must use one of those plugins or something in Audition where it's like radio limiting or something, right? One of the presets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. And as far as that, also takes care of the loudness, right? Do you set your output? Is your final audio file at a certain loudness level?
Yes, it is. Pretty much everything's preset.
Got it.
And gosh, I don't have the details right here in front of me, but most everything is preset because we know what comes across. I know how I usually come across my own speech level. And it just kind of works out. Now this took a lot of practice on our part to figure out, okay, how can we make this more of a streamlined process, the editing?
Right.
Because we can drive ourselves crazy and have.
Right.
But but it just takes a little bit of practice, and you get faster and you get faster. And we weren't at a 10-minute editing per show when we started in, gosh, whatever it was, 7-8 years ago in podcasting. But
right.
It's gotten to where we know where to bring in the music, where to fade, and things of that nature.
Right. So the intros and outros, they're already faded and stuff, or do you actually manually adjust things in Audition?
Sure. Well, they're already set, but depending on the show, we might have to make some adjustments for a quick fade or for a longer trail, or just kind of to match the show.
Got it. So do you like being in there? Do you like being in Audition and tinkering around, or is it kind of like you just want to knock it out and get it done?
Knock it out, get it done.
Okay, cool. Yeah. You're like a marketing promotion, like you're a well-rounded guy. You have obviously many technical skills, and you also have probably your real skills are in the launching of books and podcasts, right? So, but there's other guys like me who are more. Well, I won't say I'm more into the tech. I guess I am more into the technical part, where that's like my thing, and I go deep into each thing, and that's been
that's you are why, or you're what podcasters need, especially if people are just brand new getting into podcasting, and they have a vision of using podcasting as an arm of their business. And frankly, it should be an arm of your business if you're getting into podcasting. But we need guys like you that can help us figure all this stuff out, because I didn't know. I mean, I was a behind the mic and in front of the camera guy back when I was doing TV and radio.
Right.
I didn't know this stuff, and I still wouldn't probably.
Right.
Had not had Cliff held one hand and my wife held the other hand. And kicking and screaming, I go into the edit bay.
Oh man,
that's a pretty good visual, huh?
That is nice. That's really nice. Do you ever incorporate pre-recorded, like on-location audio?
No, and that's something I need to get in the habit of doing, because I can totally see the value in that. Gosh, when I was doing, radio, one of the things that I love doing, terrestrial radio, is I would do a lot of on-location stuff, a lot of it. And that's one thing I miss about the radio business. It was so much fun. But one of the things that I am wanting to do with my podcast is start being more mobile. I've went out and got a couple of ATR 2100s and a Zoom recorder. That's a digital recorder, and I've got the studio in a bag, ready to go. I just haven't put it into proper use yet. So shame on me, but that's one of the things that I definitely want to start doing is on location stuff.
So question, because I didn't ask you before, on the Behringer compressor gates that you use on each channel, who set those up in the beginning? I mean, did you and your wife, one of you was talking while the other one was adjusting the knobs? How did you set that up?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. And this answer is going to sound like a cop-out.
Don't tell me you just Cliff said, turn this knob here, turn that knob there, and you're good. Tell me you didn't do that.
No, hell no. Okay. There's no way. There's no way I did anything remotely like that. No, absolutely not.
Good.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you do?
Exactly what you just said. We didn't.
Well, there you go. So
I just ruined your whole show. Sorry to waste your time there, Chris.
No, not at all. It's so funny because in the end, so what Cliff recommends, turn this knob to here, that knob to there, and all this. That's a good starting spot. But here's the thing. It might be good. Those settings might be good. And if you don't hear, because at the end of the day, Joel, you have to use your ear. If what you're hearing doesn't sound right, if your level is really high and your wife's level is really low, something's wrong. You're going to have to turn some dials.
Sure, yeah.
But if you set it up that way and you record and it sounds great, then it's totally fine. So it always comes down to the ear, to what you're hearing and how the listener perceives it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad that we have so much functionality available to us. I haven't maximized it, but definitely I need to. Again, sign me up for your class, Chris, because I'm probably going to need that additional training.
Yeah, I have some actually some really cool stuff planned for the podcast engineering school. I'm just very busy. I'm trying to develop a school and run my company at the same time and do a few other things at the same time too. So, what do you find most, like, look, even though your systems are all set up, it's easy. You have your pre-recorded intro and outro. You have all your dials and knobs set, and you record 5-10 minutes of editing, like you said. Is there anything now that is a little difficult, or you wish you could be better at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the content creation of post recording.
Okay.
Like show notes and
marketing materials.
Well, not only that, but just, the right keywords to use.
Oh man.
And things of that nature, so people can find your show. And we figured out quite a bit of stuff with how to make your show pop up in Google and get it on the front page and all that. But that is a continual learning process, because that area continues to change and develop. What's really cool though is podcasting is starting to hit some major traction, with Google Play Music now, in the podcasting game, and many of the other directories, iTunes, we know about, Stitcher, and so many other things. It's very cool. Hey, I heard a report the other day that on the Android app, when you search through Google, the results actually let you play a podcast right there in the Google search results, and that is pretty darn cool.
Wait, on a desktop browser kind of thing?
No, on a Droid.
Oh, on an Android phone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, gosh, about 75% of all podcast downloads are on mobiles these days, so that's huge news.
Yeah, you see, Google Play getting into the game was just so long overdue. It's almost weird.
Gosh,
yeah. So look, so as far as your technical production, I think we've gone through it all. I think this is great. I mean, I think you're clearly a guy who is very practical and functional, and let's get it done and make sure it's good. Make sure go through the process of learning, making mistakes, get it right. But now you're in a flow where you have your setup, it sounds good, you like it, and now you're just building your business and working on your other things, which is how it should be. Obviously, our goal in life is not to adjust compression settings and all that stuff every day, all day. I mean, we have to live a life, but hopefully folks can be inspired by you, because look, it's not easy. If you're not a technical guy, if you're not like an audio guy with an ear, or a musician or whatever, audio is not very straightforward. And for guys like you, we've had probably half the guests on the show so far are not really super technical people, but they have to learn, they have to get it done. And it's cool because
you do.
Yeah.
Well, see, here's the thing, Chris, and I'm glad you kind of came around to talking about that. Do whatever it is that you need to do to get your show out. And don't worry about what other people are doing. Just focus on your show, your ideal listener. You might use the term avatar. You might have heard that before. Focus on your business and who you want to serve. And you know what? It took me, and I'm still trying to remind myself that it doesn't matter what this guy does or what that guy does. All that matters is that I'm putting out quality content, that it sounds good, that people can listen to it on their phone, their computer, and on their tablet, and that I'm consistent with the content that I put out. Is my show appealing to everyone? Hell no. I hope it's not.
Right.
Because I want to focus in on exactly who I want to be listening to, so I can serve them, offer my services to them, and be well received. So, but you know what? It took me a long time to learn that it's not important to keep up with this, this guy or that guy, but I just need to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish. and that has been the difference maker for me.
Right.
Hopefully that will be valuable information to one of your listeners.
Yeah, to anybody. I mean, look, if you want to be a producer or an engineer of podcasts, or you want a career in that or a business, you got to focus on it. I mean, so that message does apply to everyone. I mean, you framed it in the terms of hosting a show or having a show, but if it's someone who's just engineering shows, they also have a focus. They also have a niche market, and they also need to not worry about what everyone else is doing. So I really like that. What's your website, Joel?
Sure. Thanks for asking, Chris. And by the way, thanks for having me here. I've been looking forward
I know.
To being here. Looking forward to seeing you at Podcast Movement.
I know.
ReLaunchShow.com is the place to go. That's where all of our podcasts are located. That's where all of our free materials and training is also located, plus everything that you would need and all the online resources that we use as well.
Right? Yeah, I know there's a lot on your site. ReLaunchShow.com. Joel, thanks for coming on the Podcast Engineering Show.
Been a blast, Chris. See you in Chicago.
Yeah, see you in Chicago, and thanks everybody for listening. This has been great. We will end with the song that we play out every episode with so far. We'll change it someday, but it's called Distance Between 2 Points. By the way, thank you to Podcast Engineering School, and thank you to Fractal Recording for making this show possible. You know, whatever you're doing out there in podcasting and the technical side of it, just keep at it, keep going, and you know my advice, sound great.